All right, welcome to Sessions with Sam, serverless for everyone. I'm Eric Johnson. I got my Dr. Pepper. I got my Serverless Everyone t-shirt. Must be time for Sessions with Sam. Hey, look here. Look who I got. Tex Ace. How do you say that? Is it Tex Ace?
It's Chase.
Okay. Oh, is that?
Although,
Okay. I get it.
apparently in some like really ancient, I don't know, Hungarian or Spanish dialect, it actually is a ch. I was informed
Really?
after the fact. So it works. It works if you're ancient, if you're from ancient Spain. So
Okay. Okay. I have some
yeah.
comments on that. Tell us who you are first and why you're here. But then I have a question for you.
Sure. So my name is Chase Douglas. I am the CTO at Stackery. Stackery is a product that makes it really easy for teams of developers to architect, build, and deploy and deliver applications in a modern, using modern architecture practices, heavily on serverless. So we're going to see a lot of that today.
Awesome. Thank you. So here's what I always thought. TX Ace, I always thought you were saying you were a Texas Ace, but you didn't spell Ace right. So are you even from Texas?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so earlier, when we were chatting earlier, I was like, well, you're from Texas, like that. So now that makes sense why you went.
Not so much.
You're coming to us from Portland, right?
I am. Portland, Oregon.
Yep. Nice. Is the weather nice there?
It finally turned into summer about a week ago.
Okay.
And I'm a summer person. I love summer. So this is great. As you can see out of my extremely bright window,
yes.
It is very summery.
I was born and raised in Phoenix. I'm not a summer fan, so I have plenty of summer. You can see out my window here. Right. This is obviously not real, but this would be a cool office. So, all right, so let's get started. We only have about a half hour, so I want to kind of jump in. So, if you're with us today, first of all, welcome. Let me see who we've got in here. Sessions with Sam. If you're with us, put a hello in the chat. Love to say hi to you, and thanks for joining us today. We're going to be talking about .NET with Sam, but we're also going to be talking about Stackery that works with Sam, right?
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Stackery builds your applications in a visual way, as we'll see in just a moment, on top of AWS SAM. So you get the best of both worlds.
That's right. Yeah. So, and I love that. Stackery is one of our partners. They do really great job. They have this really killer design element that as you design your architecture, it outputs to SAM, obviously. But they do a lot more than that. So, Chase, I've already kind of shared your screen, as you can see. So I'm going to turn it over to you. And Chase is going to show us how to do .NET with SAM. And I'll be interrupting with questions. So.
Yeah, so just as Eric was mentioning, Stackery makes it really easy to visualize and edit all of your serverless-based applications. This is an example that I love to show off of Wild Rides, which is an old school.
I'm going to interrupt you already. I apologize. Is there any way you can blow it up just a pinch?
Yes.
Okay.
And so I was just mainly showing this off because I love how this lays out and gets visualized. Right. Oh, of course, as I blow it up, it relays out. Anyways, just to kind of show, we could build all kinds of applications inside of Stackery. Today, I thought it'd be fun to build a .NET-based API because I love showing examples that people haven't seen already 1,000 times. Why bother showing how you build up another Node.js or Python-based API? Why don't we do a .NET?
Fun of me a little bit. No. I build everything in Node or Swift. I'm doing a little Swift now too.
So Eric put together this awesome Sessions with Sam repo on GitHub with all these different examples. We're going to take this and we're going to add an example to this for a .NET API. So I'm going to fork this repo. We'll fork it into Stackery. And then we'll start to build on top of this. Let's see. All right, we've got it here. I'm going to clone this down into VS Code, my favorite IDE. So let's pop in, let's git clone, and I'm going to pop in the URL. We'll put this onto my laptop here. Of course. It'll probably be easier if I just do it this way. Stackery / sessions. Oh, I have to say clone from GitHub. Stackery / sessions with Sam. And that should clone down. Of course, demo gods fail me. We'll go back to the terminal.
Anytime you go live, yeah. But
I
don't
know,
worry.
seriously.
If anybody's been on this show before, they've seen problems. So you are not alone there. And I'm asking, right. I've put it in the chat. Let us know if the font's too small, because that can be sometimes hard.
Yes, I will zoom this in. So we got our sessions with Sam repo here. Great starting point. And what I'm going to do now is this has a repo. A lot of times people build up applications where they just have one repo. The application is at the root of the repo. And that's a very common pattern, one that there are a bunch of productized ways of making that really nice for people. But we're going to go a different way today. I'm going to create a new folder here. We'll call this .NET API. That makes sense to you, Eric?
Yeah, that's perfect. Hey, I am going to ask you to blow your font up just a little bit. It's kind of hard.
Yeah, let me do that. Yes.
Much better. I know it's really hard to demonstrate this way, but that's readable. Thank you.
Yeah, and so I'm going to hop into here, and I'm going to create a new stack inside of this .NET API.
Whoa. You're using Stackery and NET. What does that do?
I am. So this will create a blank template and initialize a couple of little Stackery settings, which will just make it easier for us to use our CLI in the future. Sure. Okay. So we'll call this sessions with Sam .NET API. Okay, so that created my stack inside of this .NET API folder. I can hop into the template here, and we've got this blank SAM template. Well, I've also installed into my environment the Stackery Serverless Tools extension. You could do the same. It's free if you just search for Stackery in the marketplace in VS Code. But I'm going to hop back. We'll open our template up, and this is where it gets fun. I'm going to open up the template inside of the Stackery visual canvas here. So let's start building up the API. I am going to add in an HTTP API, one of the newest ways to build APIs.
Yeah.
Let's add in a function as well. And maybe we'll add in a table so that we can store some data.
And that's a DynamoDB table, right?
Exactly. Okay. So let's say that we want to, every time we post a new user profile to the API, it saves it inside of a DynamoDB table. So we'll call this table, why don't we call it users? And it'll take an ID as a hash key. And so we'll save that. And I'll come into my API, and we're going to change the main route to post/users/ID. All right, let's save this now. And lastly, let's take our function. Let's call it save user. And this is going to be a .NET Core 3.1 latest runtime, latest stable runtime. We'll put it into the save user folder. And that's about all I need to do here. We'll save this. And yes, because I said to change from Node.js to .NET, it's asking me if I want to replace the contents of that folder. So we'll replace that. And we'll see that that created for me the save user folder with a function.cs file. So we'll get to that in a minute. But the last thing we need to do is we need to start to wire this up. So we'll make it so that this users/ID route is serviced by this save user function. And we'll make it so that the saved user function can interact with this users table. When I wire that up, it does two things for me that are really handy. The first is it gives myself, or it gives this function, a permission statement to be able to access the table, the users table, and it creates environment variables that make it really easy for me to reference the table in my function code using CloudFormation. So,
okay, can you maybe I don't want to jump the gun. Can you show the same
yes.
template now?
Yes, thank you.
This is so stinking cool. Because if you've watched on this, I build this all the time. And Chase, we have a question coming in here real quick, and I'll let you answer it. What's the name of that extension again?
Yes, it is Stackery. If you just search for Stackery, you'll find it.
Right. Right, and notice, and I can tell you as the foremost SAM expert in this particular room I'm in, not this chat probably, but this is best practices. With the parameters getting passed into the function, using the policies. I love this. He's not the Stackery's not generating inline policies. Instead, they're using the managed AWS policies that already exist. However, if they don't, I'm sure you can generate a policy as well if needed. So
right, there are some times where a built-in policy doesn't exist, and we're still
right.
able to help you in those cases.
Right. So yeah, this is just super cool. Super cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So we built up really quickly 65-line template. It doesn't take much to start to build really large templates.
Right.
So it's really handy to have that visual overview that you can always refer back to help you understand how a system is built. So now that we've got our architecture, notice that I'm not bothering yet to work on the function code. I could open that file and we can take a look at it, but honestly, we're going to leave it as it is for right now. All it's going to do is it's going to log this the input event. It wants me to restore the dependencies. We'll get that out of the way. We're allowed to do that.
That's a Visual Studio Code thing you're seeing there.
Yeah, Visual Studio Code is installing the dependencies for the .NET function at its base state right now. It just wanted to nag me, so I let it do that. The next step, though, instead of working on the code, which is often what people want to dive into, we're going to make this easier on ourselves by starting to provision the infrastructure so we can interact with it. So I'm going to come into here, and I'm going to say, I'm actually going to export my AWS profile to be my demo account. And I'm just going to export in Stackery. There's a concept of an environment. An environment is a namespaced region inside of my AWS accounts that gives me a mechanism to set parameters, to set to be able to tell things like if I need to cross-reference resources that already exist, say like a database that already exists, I can put that ARN of the database into here, and then I can reference that inside of my template. It gives me a spot to put secrets. So if I have credentials that I need to use for an existing database, I can put that in here. And it all deploys everything into namespace locations inside of my AWS account. So I've got a bunch of these.
I'm going to pause you right there. Sorry, I'm probably totally running your groove. But so this is going into the AWS secrets or the parameter store, right? So it's using
parameters go into.
That's right.
Yeah, they go into Systems Manager Parameter Store, and secrets go into AWS Secrets Manager.
Right. So what you're not doing is you're not storing stuff, and just so folks know, Stackery's not saying, "Hey, we're going to create another place that already exists. We're just going to help you manage that." And so that's getting pulled over there. Very cool.
Exactly. So I love to use my development environment when I'm building up something new. So you'll notice that I do have a development environment here. So inside of Stackery, because I know I'm always going to work with the development environment today, I'm going to say my Stackery env name equals development. So I'm going to export that as well. Now, if I do Stackery deploy, I believe that's all I needed to say for it to automatically understand everything I want to do. And it's going to start to deploy this, prepare it using the SAM build and package commands.
That's right.
It's going to package all of this up, including building that .NET function for me on my machine here. And then it looks like, it's past that now. Now it's creating the final CloudFormation change set, and it's uploading it to AWS to CloudFormation on my behalf. So CloudFormation takes that template, and now it's going to start to execute that, which means it's going to start to provision the resources that were in the template. So we can see here, we're starting to provision the users table, the DynamoDB table. Once that's done, the next step will be provisioning the function. And lastly, it'll provision the API. Now, here's why it's really important that we provision these first before we start hacking on our function. When we want to work on our function, we need to actually be able to talk to a DynamoDB table.
Yep.
Now, I could set up a mock for the or a fake for the DynamoDB table, but it's never going to behave the same exactly as the real DynamoDB service does. I won't really be testing my IAM policies. I won't be testing the potential of rate limits.
Right.
There's any number of things that don't quite match up.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in there. I agree wholeheartedly. What we see a lot of times is folks, and there is a DynamoDB local that's great for learning DynamoDB and all that kind of thing. But what we've seen is folks trying to, Docker network, line those up. And if you've watched the show at all, you've heard me before. Chase is dead on. Best practice is test as much of your stack as you can in the AWS cloud, because I know I'm not smart enough to get Docker network going right. So I end up wondering, is it the network? Is it my code? Is it the emulator? Is it the, whatever? So also the other thing is when you're running with local credentials, you probably have admin access with your local credentials, or more access than your Lambda should have. And so what ends up happening is we test with those credentials, and then when we get it out, when we get it deployed, nothing works. So that's another way of testing that kind of stuff as well. So yeah, I want to harp on that. Just get off my soapbox. I'll turn it back over to you, Chase. Yeah.
So what I'm doing here is, now that our stack was deployed, it told me some information about it. It says that I've got an API endpoint here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to hit this with a curl command that's going to cause my function to be invoked once at least. So let's hit that. And we just get back this kind of empty body, JSON body, because our function doesn't do anything else. It just returns that. But the key point here is, because I've invoked my function, I now have logs inside of AWS CloudWatch logs that tells me what my input event was. Now I can actually use Stackery to pluck that event from, actually I need to descend into my save user folder so it knows which function I care about. I'm going to pluck the event from the latest event from this function. So in a second here, we'll see the input event that generated that was passed into the function when it is invoked. So I'm going to take this same command, I'm going to put it into an event.json file, so we have it safe and stored alongside our code, so that we can start to write our code and refer to this as the input event that we would expect.
So that grabs just the event, not the log info around it, but just the event.
Just the event. So now I've got that event here.
Okay.
In raw JSON form, and you'll see that I kind of glossed over it, but Eric, you're my test subject. I apologize. We are adding you to our table, and with just somewhere in here is the body in base 64 encoding, but I said the username is EdgeGeek. That's his Twitter handle. So now I can get cracking on my function code. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say Stackery local invoke. I'm going to pass it the event.json file. So it's going to invoke locally on my machine this function, but it's going to use that event.json as the input. And then I'm going to watch for changes. And because this is a .NET function, as opposed to Python or JavaScript, which are scripted and you don't have to compile every time, I'm going to say, yes, please recompile my function every time we are invoking this. So now we're going to see Stackery rebuild that function locally, and then also do two important things. It's going to generate credentials. That's what it's doing right now. It's assuming the role for that function. So it's going to generate the credentials for it so that I can talk to the actual DynamoDB table in my development environment. And it's going to fetch the environment variable values for the function so that I can locate the real DynamoDB table in my environment. So it did that, and then it built and it invoked the function. And we see here that it returned this. It looks a little out of order just because of how the Docker container logging works. But this is what the logs were. So we logged the input event. So we're ready now to start to hack on this function. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this function, and we'll pull this down a bit while we hack on it. And we'll start to add in some of our code to save this to a DynamoDB table. So first of all, I'm going to do a bunch of like copying and pasting because this starts to get a little bit long if you just watch me. But I'm going to change this. Instead of taking in a dynamic JSON event, we're actually going to take in a specific event that represents the HTTP API input, and we know that we're going to respond with a specific output event. So we're going to start here, but in order for this to work, I actually need to come back into my terminal. It's going to show me a big error here because I don't have the dependencies installed for .NET to actually understand these API gateway events. So I'm going to paste into here a command to add API gateway events, the library, to my dependencies for this function. And I'm going to do the same thing because I know I'm going to need it in a little bit. I'm going to do the same thing for DynamoDB. So now that I have that, I can now come back up here, and in a moment, I can easily add, all right, we want to use system threading tasks, and we want to use Amazon Lambda API gateway events. All right. So we've solved our challenges there. And the last bit I need to just update as a base level is to log this out as JSON still. I just have to update this to use the new JSON serializer in .NET Core 3. So now I'm taking in an input event that is an API gateway proxy request. I need to update my return code. After we're done processing this, we're just going to return a status code of 204, which means updated, but I have nothing left. I have nothing more to send you in the body of my response. Because what we're going to add in here is the code to save the details to DynamoDB based on the input message. You following me so far, Eric?
I'm with you. Yes, yes. Now I'm interested in the way the status code. So you're overriding that with the HTTP API. And that's another conversation on how HTTP API versus REST handles status codes and payload returns, things like that. So I like that you're using the actual status codes to give the message of, hey, this is the end of it. So
yeah. So for the sake of time, I'm going to copy and paste some code here. So this code, and let's resolve real quick the some of these usings stuff that we need. All right, I think we're good now. Table, there we go, document model. All right. So, of course, man, .NET, system collections generic. All right, what this code does, yeah. So the ID, you'll notice that when we look at our event.json file, we posted to /users/ID. And in this specific instance, we posted it to /users/Eric. So when I want to insert this record into DynamoDB, I need to grab that ID data from the request and include that with the username property in the payload that we're going to save into DynamoDB. So we're going to first deserialize the body of the request into this data object. That's going to include your username is EdgeGeek. And now we're going to add the ID property based on the input event, its path parameters, and then the ID. So I don't have to parse it out of this string. In fact, because that was this ID path parameter, I can hop over to somewhere in here. I wish it were pretty printed, actually. I'm sure there's a fast way to do that in VS Code, and I'm just
Control-Shift-P. Beautiful.
Control-Shift-P.
Try it, yeah. If you're on Windows or Mac, would be Apple Command-Shift-P. Go to Beautify. Oh, you don't have Beautify.
I don't have the extension installed.
All right, fail. Show's over. Everybody have a good day.
Yeah. Well, this is long. Here it is. Path parameters ID is Eric. So we're pulling it from there. And then we're serializing that back into JSON because the DynamoDB client has this really nice ability to put an item from JSON. So we're going to put the item from that JSON format. And in between here, this is a really key part. We talked about how when we wired up the function, we added an environment variable that told us what the name of the table was when this gets deployed. And so in my function here, I am loading the table into the .NET DynamoDB client using the table name, which I'm getting from the table name environment variable. So everything is now wired together. I think I'm ready to try to re-invoke this. So
mine wouldn't work first time, but let's see how you do.
Yeah, let's see. All right. We're running, and in a second, we'll find out if we were successful.
All right, so and it does the build as well, because .NET I have to build the code each time. So as a JSON or as a Node developer, I'm like, what? But yeah, I understand. You have to build it each time.
Right. Of course, I'm hitting a Lambda namespace issue. This was working just a minute ago. What is it about?
Fun? Yeah. Is it throwing any? Is .NET?
Oh, I know. Or I think I know. Sometimes no methods matching method name function handler.
So let me ask you this: in your template, what is the template calling for the?
Handler?
I bet it's calling function handler.
I think it might be function handler. Yeah. So I messed this up when I pasted it.
Hey, no. I get credit for that.
You saved the day, Eric.
It would be one that Chase was in a session that I did that bombed. So they always happen. So.
Yep. All right. So we got here. Oh, we got this error message. E is the invalid start of a value as we're trying to JSON parse our body. What could that be? So we have our body and we're trying to deserialize it. Let me look back at my body here. I think I had it right at the end. There's the body. Oh, that's right. This is in base 64. It's not a raw JSON string.
That's right.
All right. Well, that's okay. With Stackery, at least, it's really easy for me to update this code and see if we can maybe fix this. So let's check if event trigger is base 64 encoded, then I want this up here. Then I'll do body equals encoding dot utf8.get string convert dot from base 64 string body. So this is how we can convert from base 64. And I need one more using into here. All right. So now we'll save this. And Stackery is automatically, it's noticed that I've changed the code. It's rebuilding and re-invoking that function. and we'll see if this has worked now.
Successfully built. That's a good sign.
Mm-hmm.
Dude,
Hey, there we
look at
go. We
that.
got a status code of 204. So let's hop back into Stackery here. If I go to my stacks and we look at, here's my sessions with Sam.NET API. If I view this now, I'm looking at a visual representation of my stack that I deployed. We'll see the one invocation that we made at the beginning when we hit the curl command. But I'm actually going to hop into here where I've got really quick links to everything that might be interesting about resources. So I'm hopping into my DynamoDB table. I said, take me into the AWS console for this table. It can sometimes be hard to find resources in an application. But that takes me right there. I'm going to hop into my items. Oh, and I see here, I've got an item for you, Eric.
Nice.
Your username is Edge Geek.
Nice.
So that is how we can build up an API. I could take the next step, though we're running out of time, to deploy this out so I can test it in real life using curl commands. But I think we've kind of convinced ourselves that we've got the right code here. So now I think the last step is to hop back into our top level. Let's do a git status. Actually, I'll use this over here. Of course, it's going to do a bunch of, I need some git ignores is what I need.
Yeah, and when you git ignore file, feel free to, or add it to this folder. Actually, probably make more sense. Yeah.
Yeah, if I add this folder, and of course it added a bunch of things that were not git ignored. So let's do git rm-r source save user. We don't want obj, and I think we don't want bin. So do that and bin. And
me pointed out that this was the curse of being live earlier. So yeah,
exactly.
It is. It happens to everyone, and the best of us. And Chase is the best of us. So
this is what I'll do: bin and obj git add source save user dot git ignore. We're so close.
We are. You're right on time. You're doing okay. So
git rm. How do I think I need to do a reset. Yes, restore -- staged bin and source bin. There we go. That's a much cleaner.
That is.
There's our template changes. Our we probably don't need the event.json, so we'll do the same thing here. Event.json. And we've got our README for our function, our CSproj, our CS file. This helps it make it easy when we descend into it to run local invoke, our git ignore. We're looking good here. So I'm going to commit this. All right, add.NET API example.
Love it.
We'll put this up.
And there you go, folks. It's available. Hey, look at this. Just so you see it here, Chase. I'm going to use Stackery for my next project from space__main. So
nice.
Yep.
Nice.
So very exciting. Yeah, and Stackery is a great product. In Chase, how much of that, like when you were doing the Invoke and stuff like that, does that use the same CLI under the hood as well?
It does. It uses the AWS SAM CLI to make it easy for us to stay on top of all the benefits that SAM is building in, AWS is building in. Yeah, I'm going to post this for you.
All right, you guys bring, and while you're doing that, I'm going to say a couple of things. Stackery brings some really cool things. One of the things that y'all do that I love, and I have a little script that I do it on my own, but really, if I'm not using Stackery, of course, is that the local environments are brought down. So as Chase was saying earlier before, we always want to deploy our stack at least once to get the resources out there. But then our local function needs to know what those resources are. What's my table name? Because we never hard code table names. We always let SAM or Stackery, say, the process name the file. So we need to get that environment down to our function. So that's done very seamless through Stackery. As well as some of the monitoring, and that I have never seen the what is it, pluck event. I haven't seen that. That's stinking cool. So
yeah,
All right. With that, Chase, do you have anything? We're running out of time here, so I want to make sure. I will be merging that very soon, so I'll do that today. Do you have anything else you want to show?
Yeah, just real quick, I'll point out that if you go to stackery.io, and in fact, I'm not signed in a certain way. So Eric, if you could post into the chat the link to stackery.io.
Yeah.
The awesome thing is that you can use everything in Stackery that we just showed for free as an individual user. And if you are part of an organization, a team of developers who wants to, level up how you do serverless, not only the development side, but your best practices around environment management, deployment processes, which we didn't even show off how Stackery makes it easy for you to build and deploy in using code build jobs in your own AWS account. You even provide CI/CD workflows and automatic mechanisms for checking security vulnerabilities among all your functions, giving you preview deployments when you open up PRs, all that kind of stuff. There's a ton of cool stuff in Stackery we didn't even show today. We've got mechanisms, plans to help teams of any size really level up how they do serverless. So please check us out. Have fun building your stacks on the side for free, and let us know if we can help you level up how you do it at work.
Yeah. And like I said, one of our partners, we love them. They're a great team, smart people doing great things on serverless, on SAM. Serverless for everyone. I posted the link. I also showed it on the screen. So if you have any questions on that. With that, Chase, thank you so much for joining us. That went really well. And I love seeing the .NET building underneath that. Sometime we'll have to have you come back and look at some of the custom builds and stuff that we can do as well. So, all right. With that, everybody have a great weekend. Sessions with Sam will be back next Thursday. I'll be posting the schedule. Looking forward to it. We've got things like config coming up, or governance. How to use SSM parameters. I know someone in the room who wrestled with that, Mr. John J. Walsh, to me, has some awesome experience with parameters that he's done. So we have some good things going on. With that, we're out, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye, Chase. Thanks. Bye.